Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30. We're going to call the meeting to order. If you'd all rise and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, so our student board representative, London Moody, will not be able to join us until about 6:30 tonight, and I understand we need to, we're going to start asking for a motion to excuse members from the meetings. So can I get a motion to excuse London from the beginning of the meeting, please?
I motion to excuse our student board rep London from the meeting.
Second.
Perfect. Can I get a roll call vote, please, Patty?
Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Ms. Sunvik?
Yes.
Mr. Mabry?
Yes.
Mr. Connors?
Yes. Thank you. Next on our agenda is special recognition. Today, this week is National School Counseling Week.
Yeah, so this week, as Mr. Connors said, is National School Counseling Week, and we want to take just a few minutes to recognize the amazing counselors that we have here in KSD. And I also wanted to take the opportunity to share a little bit about the task force work that's going on that the counselors are involved with as well. So I'll start with the work of the counselor and why we have a task force in place, and then I've got a formal proclamation to read recognizing our counselors. So the work of school counselors has been defined in law. It was actually defined in 2006, and I won't read everything that is included on the slide here, but it just highlights the fact that they have a very important job in terms of delivering a comprehensive counseling program for students that promotes academic, personal, social, and career development, and is based on the national counseling standards from the American School Counseling Association, which we call the ASCA standards. So there's important information in the ASCA framework because it really helps to define what counselors do and how our students are different as a result of the work that the counselors do and the support that they provide. So part of the new legislation that came out of the legislature 2 years ago was to help define better through the ASCA standards what counselors should be doing with their time. And 80% of the time should be spent on directly and indirectly serving students. So the task force work that's happening right now in our district is to help better clarify, things that counselors are currently doing that really don't fit into the standards for school counseling, and helps us inform what level of support we really need for counselors to be able to provide the support that they need for students. So when we say, and when the legislature says in OSPI, direct student services and indirect student services, some examples of direct student services would be providing small group or individual or classroom instruction, providing appraisal and advisement on an individual, small group, or classroom level, or doing small group or individual counseling with students. So those are some examples of direct services. Indirect services would be consultation, not directly with students, but with other providers, with teachers, collaboration with teachers, providing referrals. So again, it's helping to specify that 80% of a counselor's time should be spent on the direct student services and indirect student services. So that work is coming along, and last year the board approved the framework, and then this year there's a task force that includes KEA members, counselors, district administrators, including our Director of Student Services, Brian Levitt, counselors, Assistant Superintendent Matt Scott, and they're really working to flesh out that that comprehensive school counseling program a little bit further. So I just want to provide a little update, but what I really want to do is say a huge thank you to our school counselors. And I know that as board members visit schools and hear from counselors, you know what an important role they play. So I want to take just a moment to read a proclamation that gives our counselors some well-deserved kudos. It says, whereas school counselors are employed in public and private schools to help students reach their full potential, and whereas school counselors are actively committed to helping students explore their abilities, strengths, interests, and talents as these traits relate to career awareness and development, and whereas school counselors help parents focus on ways to further the educational, personal, and social growth of their children, and whereas school counselors work with teachers and other educators to help students explore their potential and set realistic goals for themselves, and whereas school counselors seek to identify and utilize community resources that can enhance and complement comprehensive school counseling programs and help students become productive members of society, and whereas comprehensive developmental school counseling programs are considered an integral part of the educational process that enables all students to achieve success in school, we do hereby proclaim February 6th through 10th, 2023 as National School Counseling Week. So if you could join me in just giving our counselors a big round of applause. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Okay, next on our agenda is communications from parents, staff, and district residents. Need my little boilerplate before we get started. The board appreciates hearing from parents, staff, and district residents. At our regular board meetings, the board of directors provides an opportunity for communications from parents, staff, and district residents. This time is reserved during our working meeting for the board to listen to comments, input, and information. The board does not respond to comments provided, as our goal is to listen and to learn. As appropriate, the board will ask the superintendent and her staff to look into any issues raised. Please note, it is important for all community members to feel welcome and safe during the board's business meeting. During the public comment period, please refrain from any positive or negative expressions, such as clapping or booing in response to a person who is providing public comment. If any audience member has any concerns about how they are being treated by another attendee, please contact a cabinet member to report the issue. The board does not take public comments on issues related to personnel or individually named staff members at board meetings. However, you can email the board with any such comments. We have two on the line. All right. I need my list here as well.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, no, thank you. Okay, so we have two people on who are calling in, so I'm going to start with them this evening. Can you tell me who we have on the line, please? Allison Dabler, okay.
Hello, Allison.
Yeah.
You're on.
Hi, I'm speaking today to implore you to vote against any changes to the current flag code. This current code that we have was revised in July of 2006 and is sufficient. Enough time and energy has been wasted on this, and there is still not a wording that ensures compliance of the arbitrary rules proposed. Worse, the message it has sent to our LGBTQIA students and families is that their very existence triggers the worst in some among them, even on the board. Regardless of any board member's personal bias, it is the job of the Kennewick school director to ensure that every student feels safe. Full stop. Let's be clear. The personal bias here refers to blatant bigotry. We cannot let the bigotry of a loud few dictate the policy of our entire school community. We should absolutely reject any measure that is born of hatred and discrimination. Everyone knows this was about trying to get pride flags removed from classrooms. At this point, we know that effort has failed. What I fail to understand is why we should entertain any change in policy that would threaten the effectiveness of compliance, given the wording. This is a charade. Please do not give another win to those on the board who have fallen prey to the very worst of political agendas, as you did with the CRT ban. We must resist this discrimination of students and KSD families while we can. By standing against these hurtful and antiquated pretenses You can show that any other diversion to doing the real work of the district will not be entertained, and you will be showing that attacking the safe spaces of our most vulnerable students and families will not be tolerated. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, who is our next speaker?
Well, you're on the board. Oh, and be sure to mute your speakers there.
Yeah. Yep. Thank you.
Good evening, please go ahead.
I don't think she heard you.
Good evening. Ravine, can you hear us?
Okay, thank you. My name is Ravine Jimenez. Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening, and I would like to speak about the special education report. And I feel like I would rather stay with after you see the presentation, but in regards to the inclusion rate goal of 58%, I was wondering how the Kennewick School District came up with that goal of 58%. And in the report, it shows that the yearly inclusion goal rate was increasing at a yearly, that it was increasing yearly, but I was wondering by when will Kennewick School District meet the goal of 58%? And then what does Kennewick School District need to meet that goal? And then when I was looking at your enrollment for the last 3 fiscal years, I noticed that from this school year and last school year, there was a 3.2% decrease in students with disabilities. And I was wondering if you guys know what happened to those students. Like, has there been any follow-up? Is it because of backlog of doing a revaluation? Because that's a huge decrease. And so that's kind of like concerning. And I think if I have any more questions, I can go ahead and send an email. So thank you for allowing me this opportunity to ask these questions.
Perfect. Thank you, Ravine. Dr. Pierce was violently writing notes over here, so she will get information for you. If you would send us an email, that would be wonderful, and we'll make sure we follow up. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our first in-person speaker will be James Robledo. Did I get that right? Perfect. Thank you.
Last October, the Herald posted an infamous article on Facebook about the school board removing pride flags. Mr. Galbraith of Valentine consistently state the article is misinformation and don't know who's spreading these lies. In the comments section of this article, Mr. Galbraith had conversations with the community about the article's content, refutes nothing about it, and confirms its accuracy. He states, as of now, I would support removing any flag or religious iconography that can be deemed controversial and distract from the classroom. Mr. Galbraith of Valentine created a mess and are now complaining about the consequences of their actions and lying to everyone, hoping the public is too ignorant to see their post history. They need to stop complaining during every meeting about feeling victimized while stating some of our students are controversial and distracting, or some of their parents, family, friends, and teachers controversial and distracting. Mr. Galbraith has an obsession with flags. Here he is looking for a flag to mock Latinos at Martha's Vineyard. A literal Nazi flag has flown in this comment section for months, and he hasn't removed it. I shouldn't feel the need to stand here and discuss the ethnic diversity of this district or how images like this are offensive and distracting. Build a Wall worked really well for Bob Parks in 2016. It should have worked well for you. Over the past year, Mr. Galbraith has resorted to doxing and bullying people on his official school board page. He even admits he doesn't know if this is a parent of a student. He creates a place for people to mock this person's gender and politics. Audra Bird even gets in on this and states it would be a fun game to publish the names and pages of her detractors, and she proceeds to do so. Mr. Galbraith defends his behavior when he's called out and doesn't stop the bullying or harassment. This is not about politics. Anyone should have the freedom to report concerns to this board without the fear of being posted online. How can that be accomplished if a fragile board member doesn't like their statements? We have self-proclaimed patriotic board members who must ban freedom of expression, create a convoluted flag policy where even multiple American flags must be banned, like someone has time to really enforce this. Ban books because they're not appropriate for kids, but racism, bullying, and harassment apparently is appropriate for everyone, or at least it is for Gabe. I think he owes the public an important explanation and an apology. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Lisa Papard.
Sorry. This is really low. I'm afraid I'm gonna mess something up. Okay, I think I got it. Thank you. Okay, this is the last board meeting before the levy vote. We can't know for sure why the levy hasn't passed, but when people come to these meetings and say, vote no for the levy, and post on social media to vote no, it isn't hard to imagine why. You all know where I stand on the flag policy, and I think I've said all I need to say about it. But I want to address the student survey. I was going to thank London, but she's not here, for taking on such a huge request from the board and for putting together the presentation. I have different interpretations of the feedback that London gave. When you say the kids want to just move on from this, it doesn't necessarily mean that they want to pass the policy. I believe they don't see the need for this policy at all. 14 students wrote in a response on the survey and said they specifically don't want pride flags in the classroom. 14. Hardly enough to warrant this policy. I really hope this policy fails. And if it does, and then the levy fails, it will be a sad commentary on this community. If it passes, I'll reiterate my stance against hate here and continue to call out political agendas disguised as other things. I love the children of this district and will continue to bring that to these meetings. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Andrew Strom.
Strom, yes.
Perfect.
All right, yeah. All right, thank you for your time. I'm here to speak about your continued discussions regarding the Kennewick School District proposed flag policy. This policy is a poor written policy that should have no place in our school district. In my years and experience of creating and implementing new policies for businesses, I've learned a few things. Policies need to be clear, designed to streamline processes or resolve issues, and easy to follow up with. This policy does none of these things. You can't agree on language proposed. There are concerns on how this will impact our classrooms with no real answers, and I can't imagine how I cannot imagine what the follow-up will look like. One piece of advice that has always stuck with me regarding implementing new policies is if the policy was to make front page headlining news, what would it say? Would I be proud of it, or would I stand for the perception of what people think of it? I have some good news. We already have some headlines. We already have some headlines that we can review. October 11th, 2022 Tri-City Herald. Will gay pride and other flags be banned from class? Two Tri-City boards consider restrictions. Again on January 25th, 2023, Tri-City Herald. Kennewick schools vote on restricting flags in classrooms. Will this start a Tri-City trend? You've already discussed that the purpose is not to ban any flags. And do we really want to restrict diversity and inclusion in our classrooms? These students are future doctors, nurses, police officers, teachers, artists, tradesmen, athletes, and service members. These policies do matter and have a huge impact on the learning environment of our students. So don't just push this policy through without really thinking about everything involved. Vote this policy down today, change the headline tomorrow. Kennewick School District votes down proposed policy number 2333 and leads Washington State in maintaining a diverse and inclusive learning environment for all of our students. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Cameron Rivera. Perfect.
I'm going to be talking about the flag policy. So I was a student. I graduated class of 2022, and I'm currently serving in the Army National Guard. And but the flag policy, it's kind of stupid, in my opinion, with trying to ban inclusivity and just having diversity in the classroom. When I got to Fort Benning for my infantry OSIT training, there was a lot of diversity in the group. There's a lot of different people. A lot of people I've never expected would even. It's like very different for me. A lot of people. The Army and just the world has a pretty much no tolerance policy on people who may enact hatred or really any other adversity towards gay people or people within the LGBT community. My class started with 220 people and we ended with 199. Roughly about, I think, 15 people got kicked out of the Army, and now they have some sort of racism strike on them, or EO, sorry, equal opportunity strike on them, because they had acted immaturely towards someone who was specifically with a few gay guys in the company. Those people will now not be able to go to colleges, or a very select few colleges. If they even want to touch them, they'll have a hard time trying to find a job in the real world now that they are no longer in the Army, and that they are known as being like, now that they're known for, I forgot the word, just acting mean towards somebody. That's about all I have.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next speaker is Linda Stevenson.
Well, I'm here for once to not talk about math, but I'm going to work math into it. I'm here tonight because you are going to vote on the flag policy. I know you want to make sure that you are taking everyone's opinions into account and that you are representing the entire community. In light of that, I rewatched all of the public comments concerning the flag policy from last September up until the latest meeting. I counted up the number of people that came here and spoke. And I counted up the number of people on each side of the issue, because you're right, let's vote for what the community wants. I counted a separate number of individuals, 45 total who spoke, 76% of them not in favor of regulating flags in the classroom. Therefore, a huge majority of people in the community do not want you to enact a new restrictive flag policy. And don't even say again, we're not banning. Banning, restricting, whatever. It's just semantics. You are policing the classrooms and restricting the rights of teachers and students. The current policy is fine. It does not need revision. It requires that all KSD students acknowledge the flag every day. This entire effort to have flags removed is politically motivated, based on a small handful of comments, and is just a thinly disguised cover for homophobia. The revised policy will reduce the safety of our KSD students. It will take an already bullied and marginalized group of students and make them feel even smaller and more vulnerable. You are deliberately discriminating against KSD students if you choose to pass this policy.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Kathy Jameson. It's all good? Okay. Moving on, Jordan Huck.
So I'm a little late to this. I just want to verify before, this is for all K through 12, correct? This flag, pride flag or flag policy?
Yes, sir.
Okay, so it is not the responsibility of the teachers to expose or potentially indoctrinate children, young children especially. Once we get into the high school realm, there's a little bit different story with the flags. But specifically, I have young children, 7 years old, who I personally do not talk to about these things. Does he see a flag out there? Yes. Has he seen all these things? Absolutely. But we don't talk to him about that because this is not, he's not old enough to completely comprehend what that means. We're at the point where we should not be allowing any flags in the classroom other than that flag right over there to your side. Last week it was mentioned about WSU flags, Pride for high schoolers, UW, but unfortunately we're at the point where we just can't allow any of it, and that really does stink. Going back to history classes too, as mentioned last week, you know, due to technology, we have the ability to actually show all these flags on computers. So really, what is the point of having another flag in the classroom other than that flag there? Not allowing the pride flags or any flags. This is not about diversity or inclusion. This is allowing the potential for young children to be exposed to things they don't understand without the parents' consent. That's wrong.
Thank you. Okay, our next speaker is Aaliyah Jackson. Did I say that right? Aaliyah, I am sorry. I apologize for messing that up.
I am also here to talk about the flag policy. I've been here multiple times and I've said the majority of the things that I wanted to say. Now, one thing that I did see from the previous meeting was that you interpret it as the students wanting it to be passed soon, get it over with. Majority wants it to be dropped. From all the different cliques of high school that I've talked to, from jogs, nerds, geeks, I go between many, and all of them just think there's no point. And if this was really about the American flag, the American flag in the classroom is thin. It's transparent at times, and it's small. If this was about showing it and being prominent about our country, then maybe it should more be about, maybe let's make it a nicer flag, maybe make it a little bit thicker as material instead of being this flimsy piece of cloth that stands on the side of the room. With that being said, this is obviously about the pride flags as an undertone, but that's not exactly what it says on the policy, which is why I will not discuss that.
Thank you so much. Okay, that is all of our public speakers this evening. Thank you very much. Okay, next on our agenda is the consent items. I would entertain a motion to accept the consent items.
Move to approve the consent items as written.
Second.
Perfect. Any questions or comments? If not, Patty, would you call the roll call vote, please?
Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Ms. Dunfit?
Yes.
Mr. Mabry?
Yes.
And Mr. Connors?
Yes.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you. Okay, next is the superintendent and board member reports. Dr. Pierce, I will let you kick things off.
Great. Well, I wanted to give an election update. As you all know, we are less than 1 week away from Election Day, and ballots are coming into the elections office. And each day I get a report that I've requested from the elections office showing how many ballots have been received and rejected and so forth. So I've been tracking that data. And as of today, and so this is just as of 4:30 this afternoon, there are 12,885 total returns, 12,681 accepted ballots, and 196 rejected ballots. And so the rejected ballots are those who have a question about the signature or the person potentially forgot to sign. And so the elections office does reach out to those people, but I know there's also that little tag that comes with your ballot that you can check to see if your ballot was accepted, if there's any issue. So that's one way people can check and make sure their vote got counted. I also asked the elections office just to provide the most up-to-date data on how many registered voters are in Kennewick School District. And they let me know we have 61,833 registered voters. So as of today, that means we've got about 21% return of ballots. So as people know, the Educational Programs and Operations Levy provides critical funding for people and programs and partnerships here in Kennewick. Election Day is coming up next Tuesday. If people have not yet voted, they really need to get their ballot in the mail this week to ensure that it gets counted. You can't put your ballot in the mail on Election Day, right? It won't get there. You can drop off your ballot in a ballot box on Election Day, and it will be counted. But we're just, again, wanting to make sure that people are informed and remembering to vote.
Wonderful. Thank you.
Pierce, can I ask you a question? I know that you wrote this someplace, but I didn't find it. So we have to have the 40% of the people who voted in the last general election. Is that correct? Do you know what that number would be?
I can't remember off the top of my head, but I can follow up and get that to you. So
I had
yes,
somebody
there's a
ask me that.
threshold of voter turnout.
A lot of people were surprised
remember?
about the 40% thing, but
Okay.
did it go away?
Oh, well, I'll double check on that.
Oh, that would be great.
Okay,
Thanks.
yeah, I will follow up on that.
Perfect. Anything else?
That's all I have.
Wonderful. Thank you. Mr. Galbraith?
Yeah, just a lot of discussion around the levy, trying to speak to as many people that have questions in regards to the levy, trying to ensure they understand tax rates and some of the things that are in the levy. So that's been a majority of it. So just trying to make sure everybody has the right information. And if you haven't voted yet and you still need information, go to the KSD webpage. There's a ton of information on there that I think people would find useful. So please check that out. So that's it.
Thank you. Mr. Valentine?
Yeah, same thing. Levy, I actually set up a meeting that I couldn't go to, but Tracy and Gabe actually went to it for the levy, and that was good. I think that they sound like they did a good job, and it was very positive from the feedback, by the way. I don't know if I told you that or not. I also was able to go to Delta High School, which is super cool. I love going to these. I love these events that are these, Amazing Shake and those type of events. Well, Delta High School, they have an event where business people from the community interview kids, and I got to interview 4 kids. And actually, when I got back on my desk, I had two like thank you cards, and they're really cool. I just like every time I do this, I get kind of blown away at like how awesome some of these kids are. I mean, the 4 kids I interviewed, I think that all 4 of them are like really, really impressive in their own right. This one girl in particular that I interviewed, as if I was giving her a job, right? And she was, I mean, the obstacles she's overcoming and the mindset she has, I just loved it. And I loved how some of these kids have 10-year plans, and we gave them a lot of feedback. It was just really cool. So I just really, really, again, super impressed with some of our kids that we have that are graduating soon. Also, I attended a group that's forming, trying to form inside of WASDA to make some changes stuff. So we had a long Zoom meeting, and it was really positive, and they came out with a lot of good feedback stuff. So I already give that to Ron. So anyway, I've been pretty busy the last couple of weeks, but very productive. It's been great.
Sunday.
So I went on a little vacation to visit family, so for once mine is super short. And I was off the grid for a few days. That was even better. So I've attended 2 of our weekly WASDA networking hours, which used to be called legislative reps, where any of the WASDA directors are welcome to that, but the leg reps go most frequently. And then we've also started a new one specifically for leg reps called the Legislative Reps Network, and that's monthly. Went last couple weeks ago on that. And then I have commented, although I do not comment for the board because we haven't agreed that the leg rep makes that comment. So I comment myself as a board member on our STARS transportation funding, which is 5174. And I voted or commented pro on that, but there are some concerns that there are funding needs that need to go with that. 5059, which we've talked about before, which is the prejudgment interest on legal things. And Ron also spoke virtually on that. I think twice now he's spoken on that. House Bill 1118, which is the mandatory cameras and seatbelts in buses. And that sounds like a great thing, but it comes with no money from the legislature, so the district would have to do that. So that's another unfunded mandate. And it's a great thing. It's just that it's pretty expensive if you don't get funding. And then House Bill 1436, which is, or 30, yeah, which is the SPED, which will be heard tomorrow at 4 o'clock. And Dr. Pierce said that she also has given some information on that. That would remove the cap. So you can't have more than X percent right now. And that would remove it and also increase the multiplier, which would give more money for different groups of students with disabilities. And that would be across all levels. If that all happens, that would fully fund special education, which would be a marvelous thing for our students and staff. And then I also wanted to let all of you know that you can subscribe to the WASDA in session. And that gives you very specific details every Friday about what bills are coming up, what bills have gone in, and the WASDA information that's gone into that. And today I registered Dr. Pierce and myself for our Day on the Hill, which is the 28th, right? 27th, 26th. It's that
Sunday,
it's that
Monday.
It's the Monday we go on the Hill,
conference.
26th and 27th.
Yeah.
Can't be 20. Yeah. And so we will be on the Hill meeting with hopefully our 8th and 16th LD people, because we now have the 16th in Kennewick School District also. So we will see who's available, because they should all be on the floor. So we will have to hope that they can come out and speak to us for a little bit of time at least.
Thank you. Mr. Bader?
I do not have anything to add.
Nor do I. Wonderful. All right. Moving on, we're on to reports and discussions, the capital budget update. Mr. Roberts will be presenting.
All right, just a quick update on the capital fund, a little refresher here on the budget and projections. So here's the budget over here, 22-23, and we budgeted that we would have 54.7 million to begin the year, and we came in at 54.549. So that's pretty close. And then down the list here, our major funding in there is state match. We budgeted 7 million. We expected to receive a little more over the summer, and we did not. So we're looking at about 3.6 million here, and then another 9.5, 23, 24. The 3.6 is from Kennewick High, some remaining match we're going to get reimbursed, and a little bit from Southridge. The 9.5 is from Ridgeview. So you have to spend, if the project costs 30 million for Ridgeview, we have to spend about 20 million first before we get our match. And this is pretty much all the Ridgeview match. The Ridgeview project is down here. About 25 million is what we're projecting to spend this year. I mean, it could be less or more, and these numbers will be adjusted for the next couple of years. And then down the list, we do get a little bit of reimbursement for IT-related costs. And again, we thought we were going to get those in the summer of 2022, so we didn't really budget any, but we have received about 556,000 of reimbursement through the government. And then the technology levy, a little over $4 million, and that's an offset down here, 4.1 million. And as we go through the 2 or 3 years, it's just an offset with that funding. TriTech has a little bit of money in there for some small projects, and I did leave a placeholder here for modernization. So they do have in OSPI Reichtel's budget, there's about 832,000 that he has in his budget for pre-construction type of money. I'm not sure where that is. I haven't really checked on it. But if that does come in, that would be in 23, 24, and they would start doing some architect work and things like that for their larger modernization project, which would be out in 25, 26, 27. And that long-term project is like $45 million to modernize the rest of TriTech. So, but there's some funding steps there, and just have to see how that plays out with the state budget. And down the bottom here, so land, this is mostly this 2 million is for infrastructure type work on the top of Riata, the South Orchard and the Riata, a couple sites up there that we have where they're starting to develop roads, and we'll be on the hook there for probably $2 to $3 million of cost. So that may be some cost this year. If not, it'll be budgeted over the next couple of years. A little bit of cost left there with Kennewick High, not too much. And then Southridge, we had retainage that we paid, close to $1 million that was paid a couple months ago. And then there's the Ridgeview project. And we do have some placeholders we keep in the budget. We don't expect to spend that money unless something comes up. But these placeholders generally will be budgeted again in 23-24. And you know, if there's a big emergency HVAC, something, we have the capacity. But like I said, we don't have anything coming up right now where we'd be spending that. Portable cost moving. In the past, some of that cost has come out of the capital fund. We've been taking it out of the general fund. We haven't had any large moves here the last year or two. We're looking at maybe moving a portable to ECAP. Just kind of reviewing that, seeing what the legislative budget does for adding slots there and the opportunity to have more kids in that program. But that could probably come out of the general fund. And then down the list here, again, the IT, here's the TriTech project, 5.5 million. Should come in hopefully under that, but I'm not sure all that'll get spent this year. If not, some of it will go over to 23-24. And TriTech is transferring some money in to help pay for that at the bottom, the 1.5 for a couple of years. And TriTech has some money in the capital fund also. So the goal is to end up with about 25 million in this fund over the next couple of years. The bond, the last project in the bond was Ridgeview, and there was money in the bond for a new school, new elementary school. So that we don't have the enrollment to do that. And that would mean that we should have about $25 million left in the fund. Then to repurpose that money, apply it toward the next bond and whatnot. So that's the goal, is to kind of keep these numbers to where we have that type of money left. Any other questions here on the capital fund? I have up here February 2025. That was scheduled for the next bond to run. And you know, when you run a bond, you get the money and it comes in here, and then projects, you know, cost down below. But so that's more of a placeholder.
So Vic, so the 25 million for Ridgeview, and so we've got to spend that money first before the state.
Pretty much you have to spend your share first, which is about 20 million, and then we'll get start getting our match. Gotcha. There could be a couple of categories where, you know, maybe on certain categories like architect fees, we spend a certain amount, we might be able to start drawing on that, but generally it's going to be a little bit.
Perfect. Any other questions, comments for Vic? Weird is the model of efficiency.
Well, we've got a few more slides left.
All right. Man, that was fantastic.
Good stuff. I do have some comments. I must have some notes in here. There's a little red mark there is probably a note, and it probably says something like, why does this cost too much? But we kind of don't get those right now. So a couple things here with some of the development. I know in the next board meeting later on, Rod's going to talk about boundaries, and just to give you some heads up here on what's going on. So I talked about the Riata South Orchard. That's this right here. So, and over here, this is South Orchard right here. So all this purple are platted properties that are to be developed. And here's Amon Creek over here.
It'd be,
coming up? Yeah, I got to fly.
It'd be easier if you could do the
If
other
you
one.
put your blinker there, then the board can see. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is South Orchard right in here. And that's this property right here. Actually, this is all this. Here's Amon Creek. So all this is Amon Creek's boundary. And as we look at boundaries and growth, so they're starting to move dirt up here. This is looking out toward Amon Creek this way. We got it. This road comes here, goes across the field. So they are moving that, and you know, it could be 4 or 5 years before we get a bunch of houses in there, but they are starting to do some things there. This is part of the cost where they might come to the districts that pay for some of these infrastructure costs. So that's a concern, you know, for the future. Amon Creek is full. This is also in our district here. They're not moving dirt there yet.
And
there are properties or these properties.
The cost that they may come to us is due to tie-in to Amon Creek?
It's due to, we own some property here, so we have to pay our share of adjacent type of utilities. And then the same with this up here. So they're working on some road stuff here, laying some infrastructure right here. And since this is our property, we'll have to pay for some of that. So just those type of things. So anyway, that's going on up there, and that plays into future development.
For anybody watching online.
Fixing a no win here.
I know.
I'll go back to this. You can see this, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So let's go to the next one. So then other area here is Sagecrest. And as again, all the purple are platted properties that haven't yet been developed. And this is Bob Olson Parkway through here. Right here, Sagecrest. So this is a concern, all this property here. This currently, I think you can see dirt and some terracing done around here. And then maybe a little bit of stuff going in around this area right here. And this is over the top of Thompson Hill, the north side. You can see, you know, some dirt moving there too. So this is a big concern. And Mr. Phillips, in a couple of weeks, will be talking about this area here. Here's Cottonwood over here. And there even is it's going to be some platted properties in through here that would impact Cottonwood. And this is looking out, here's Sherman Street here. This is some of that terracing you'll see here. Part of those plats that we looked at.
Vic,
over here.
Can you go back to the slide before when you show south of Thompson Hill? The very, yes. That was the developer that came through and wants to develop that side of the hill. And I just remember coming down and saying, is there a concern with the development of that hill as far as how it would impact the schools? And the answer I received was no. So why is it now a concern that these developments you're pointing out is a concern when the development of the south side of Thompson Hill was not a concern?
So the developer says they won't impact schools?
No, the school district said it would not impact.
I remember this. I can speak to that. I remember this. And so typically when Vic, and you correct me if you disagree, Vic, but when he says that we've got this area is a concern, it's not a concern that we don't have enough room for the students there or anything like that. So I think when you say concern, it's just like we're looking at that, we're tracking that because we want to make sure as we make boundary decisions that we're keeping future growth and development in mind. So the boundary that we're looking at balancing between schools because we have some schools that are getting quite big and some schools that are quite small. Balancing that enrollment across schools and then making sure as we make those decisions that we're accounting for future growth and development.
Yeah, it's enrollment.
So it's not really a concern that the growth is happening. In fact, I would say the growth, is beneficial when it comes to things like tax rates, because when we have assessed valuation increasing that's due to additional residential property development or commercial property development, right, it helps keep our tax rates lower. So
yeah. Yeah, it's not a concern about them putting roads being put in or infrastructure. It's just, Sagecrest would not be able to handle all those new kids hopefully we're going to get. So the boundaries have to be looked at.
But we have other schools where there is capacity. So again, back to we don't need right now to build an additional elementary school, the one that was part of that 2019 bond measure. We just don't need it right now because we have capacity in our schools to house all of our students and for future development in the near future.
And we're not eligible for any reimbursed money.
For new we don't have unhoused.
Vic, I have a question. So I think we're looking at the right place. Is that the one that comes right down behind Ridgeview? On the north side of Thompson?
Street here, the other side.
Is that the south side? Okay, so if we're on the other side,
yeah, we have some pictures
from my house.
there.
So there's that new scar that runs down all the way from
some of this right
the
here.
north side. Yeah.
This is the
Yes.
Ridgeview.
Yes, that's it.
And this goes over this way a little bit, some
Right.
of that.
And how, do you know how many are platted in that? I drove up there the other day and tried to figure out how many, and it
Not
like
for
astounds
that. I mean,
me.
that's probably some of this in here, I think. So there's a ridge view, some of this right here, could be.
It should be, yeah.
But it's just, and we've asked the city about, platted roads and things, and they say, well, we don't really have that yet, but eventually there'll be something there.
So those will be Ridgeview students, though?
Rob will be touching on that in a couple
Okay.
weeks, how that looks, this area, some suggestions.
Okay.
And then some pictures of Ridgeview, it's coming along. You can see the front
Really
here.
looks good.
And then this is looking from the back side. So moving along pretty good there. And then Tritech, so looks pretty generic, but it's walls are being up. Going up there. So that's it. Any other questions on the capital projects or fund?
So Vic, really quick, so both sort of Tritech and Ridgeview are both on schedule and they're.
So far, from what I hear.
Wonderful.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Thank you, as always, Vic.
Okay. And then the next meeting, we'll talk a little bit about general fund and future budget, things like that.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, Dave.
Yeah.
Okay, next on our agenda is special education program update and inclusionary practices. Mr. Scott and Lexi's joining us. Good evening. How are you?
How are you?
Wonderful, thank you.
Okay, good evening. So we want to talk a little bit tonight, just give you an update on special education programs, and I'll also take an opportunity, as will Lexi, to address our callers' questions in regards to inclusion rate, so we can hopefully get some answers and help provide information to everyone that will be helpful. Just to, as most folks know, special education is very crucial to how we provide for our students, and particularly within our strategic plan goals. All three of our student focus goals are really directly impacted by our special education programs. First and foremost, we want to have students be prepared for their future, and special education is very crucial in providing personalized plans for post-secondary pathways for students and to help them meet their post-secondary goals. In terms of having engaged learners, special education touches all of these, kind of subcategories of the goal, both in developing rigorous, engaging instruction, which is really the point of our inclusionary practices. Also, how we provide supports, how we provide diverse course offerings for students at all levels, and also how we are engaging growth and progress. And likewise, as we want all of our students to feel safe, known, and valued, our special education staff and services are really designed to provide for physical, social, emotional, intellectual safety. We want students to be well known, and special education staff are outstanding at providing that. And then also just valuing the strengths that all of our students bring, no matter their backgrounds, no matter their abilities, is really crucial. This year in particular, we're working on a few objectives. One of those is convening, we're working with our teachers group on an elementary and secondary, because one of those drivers of inclusion rate is really the services that are able to be provided. We have a fairly traditional system in Kennewick of providing services in pull-out settings and in special education classrooms. That directly impacts our inclusion rate, because when students are educated with only special education peers, that inclusion rate tends to be a little bit lower. So one of the things that Lexi and our teachers union are working on is to really look at how we can change and how we can develop our resource room setting, the scheduling, the teachers' roles to really increase the ability and the provision of inclusionary practices in the gen ed classroom. And so there's a lot of work that's been going on with that. We also want to continue to provide support for schools in developing multi-tiered systems of support. Multi-tiered systems of support are crucial because all students should be receiving a core instruction, and there should be interventions in place for all students to access their instruction. And by doing that, we can directly impact our inclusionary rate as well. But we also need to be developing those strategies with our teachers, helping them, because it's not as simple as just putting students with special needs in classrooms and asking teachers to just deal with it. We need to give them strategies, and we need to give them training, and we need to give them supports, and so we're working really hard on that. We also, again, along those same lines, want to continue to develop and provide professional development, not only for rigorous instruction for all students, but to help meet the needs of our students. And so we do have a goal of a district-wide inclusion rate of greater than 58%. We have a slide later on that will kind of show our progress towards that. Our caller asked how that rate was determined, and that rate is the state average. It was the state average as we developed our plan. The state average does move slightly during the course of each year, just depending. We don't want to be resetting our goal. We believe that we should be shooting for 58% of our students being educated most of their day with their non-disabled peers, and that's why we're undergoing a lot of that work. The caller also asked about, kind of those impacts. I've alluded to a few of them. First and foremost, we provide students individually what they need. And sometimes those students are best served with their special education peers in some of our classrooms. And Lexi's going to talk about our continuum of services and all the different ways we provide those services. But a main driver in that is really, again, those supports that we're offering students. Where best can we serve them? And can we start to look at ways that we can serve them with their gen ed peers when traditionally we've served them with special education peers? And so those are some of the impacts around that. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Lexi, who's going to talk a little bit about just kind of currently where we're at with staffing, and also get into a little more detail with those efforts.
Good evening. Hit the wrong button. All right, currently in special education, we have 110 certificated staff members, about 45.6% of our 45.6 FTEs for our itinerant staff. And then we also have our intervention team, which is comprised of 12 individuals, both certificated and classified staff members. We're going to dig in a little bit more and kind of look at that. One of the barriers that we have had this year is fully filling all of our itinerant positions. Finding school psychologists, SLPs has been challenging. But as Matt said, we have a pretty incredible special education staff in the Kennewick School District who has pitched in and made sure that kids are receiving their services to the highest quality. And so we're really blessed to have those folks on our team and pitching in. And we are already in the process of hiring for next year. The next thing I want to look at is our enrollment trends. Our caller asked about the dip in enrollment that we see in the 2020-2021 school year. And what we likely attribute this to is that COVID dip that we saw just in school in general. COVID hit in the spring of 2020, so at the tail end of the 2019-2020 year. But as you can see, we are really rebounding from there. The yellow bar at the end is indicated as incomplete data because what we're looking at, we submit monthly counts to the state every month where we verify student attendance and enrollment and if they're receiving services. We haven't completed this school year, so we anticipate that average enrollment will continue to increase. Because we're looking at actuals here that are averages, it may differ slightly than when Vic presents his numbers for projections for next year. The count, though, does help generate our funding. And as I think we were talking, I heard earlier, currently special education is currently underfunded. And we have to make that up as a school district. There are bills currently in the legislature trying to close that gap and help fully fund special education. Next up is our continuum of services here in the Kennewick School District. We start at age 3. Our preschool program serves kids ages 3 to 5. We have students that are served at Keewaydin Discovery Center, and that is our preschool, our developmental preschool. We also have inclusion programs where we serve kids at ECAP, Inspire, and Head Start. We have a teacher that travels to all of those sites and provides special education services. When we move to our K-12, we have our resource rooms. We offer those at every single building here in the Kennewick School District. All of our schools serve and have a resource room. What Matt was talking about earlier regarding our task force that we're working with our KEA partners is to look at how we can develop and create time for some of those maybe more push-in supports as opposed to that more traditional pull-out model. Students in the resource room can be served in any of the qualifying areas that students qualify in special education. Structured learning is kind of a program where kids have pretty significant academic needs, but need a kind of blended or kind of in the middle restrictive environment where they need highly structured academic exposure, but it's not quite a life skills or a tier 3 program. We then move to our inclusion programs. We have two types of inclusion programs. We have an inclusion autism program. Also, you may hear of it referred to as tier 2. And then we also have an inclusion behavior program. Our inclusion autism programs, we have those at a variety of schools, which you'll see listed up there at elementary. We have one at middle school and then one at high school. When we go to behavior, also referred to as tier 2, we have 6 elementary schools that have tier 2 behavior programs. Those programs strive to meet the emotional behavior regulation needs of our students here in the Kennewick School District. If you remember from last year, I presented that we were really looking to expand our inclusion behavior support. We have since posted a position and we're really hopeful to find a candidate to fulfill a middle school behavior program and undergo that planning process with us. So we are really hoping to expand our behavior program, inclusion behavior program to the middle school level. We then move to what we consider our tier 3 programming, and we have autism and life skills programs, and they are offered at elementary, middle, and high school at select schools, which you will see listed up there. Again, those students in those programs just require a higher, more individualized supports. And then lastly is our community employment and transition program. It's currently housed at Southridge High School, ran by Kevin Zorb, and gets our students out into the community, getting workforce experience, working on those transitional and vocational goals. What you see here is the number of students that we currently have in each of the programs and the teachers that we have. So we have 10 teachers at preschool. You'll see our tier 1 resource room, how many students we serve. This will not fully add up to our total count because we do also serve students who are in private schools, kids that are homeschooled and are partially enrolled in the Kennewick School District. But this gives you a snapshot of the students that we serve across our continuum here in the Kennewick School District. Next, we're going to move to our inclusion rates, as Matt kind of discussed. Our current inclusion strategic plan goal rate is 58%. What you'll see here, and that's really a measurement of our LRE1. What we're striving to see is have 58% or more of our students in that LRE1 category, where they're spending 80% or more of their school day with their non-disabled peers. You can see over time the state averages of that LRE1 started at 56.6%. Currently, in the 2022-2023 school year, the state average is 63.4%. Our KSD average we have improved, so we're making improvements towards our goal. We've also decreased, you'll see we did decrease the percentage in our LRE2, but we did see an increase in our LRE3 from last year to this year. What I want to highlight, though, is that steady growth over time. I just took over last year, and one of the things that I really wanted to do is to take some time to reflect, to listen, to learn from our staff on the ground and see where do we need to go to help support these inclusionary practices here in the Kennewick School District. This is a snapshot that the state provides us that helps us kind of disaggregate the data and say, where do we need to focus our efforts? What you'll see here, the blue bars at the bottom are that LRE1. So remembering that our goal is to be at that 58%, you can start to look at this graph and see that we are achieving that goal in kindergarten, first grade, second grade, just under in third and fourth grade, fifth grade. Where you see that the bulk of the efforts need to start is really in that middle school grade levels. And we've identified some of those barriers and are working as a leadership team to partner with our middle school and high school principals. And I'll highlight that in just a minute, some of the work that we are doing to improve our inclusionary rate. One of the things I did want to mention too, if you look at the blue, orange, and gray bars, they're not going to necessarily add up to 100%, just as I showed on that previous total enrollment, because we also serve students who are in these top little bars up there that are private school students that we provide special education services to, homebound students, students that are served out of district, and so those are represented by those top smaller bars. So our efforts to improve inclusionary practices, we continue to provide universal design for learning professional development opportunities. This year it was opened up to our principals. Rhonda invited principals to come and participate and learn more about UDL. What we know is that all kids benefit from universal design for learning. And those are our foundational supports, as Matt mentioned, in that tier 1 multi-tiered system of supports, where we really want to make sure that our kids can benefit from the instruction in their least restrictive environment. Some of the system efforts that we made this year, at the end of last year, I took the opportunity to go and meet individually with every single building administration team and every single building certificated teacher team. And questions that were asked is, where are you at on the journey for inclusionary practices? What professional development would you need? What supports would you need from the special education administration? From those listening sessions and kind of aligning with our new K-12 vision, we kind of realigned how we provide support within our special education department. Chad Littrell, who we hired on this year as our assistant director, is partnering with all of our secondary buildings. Rosie Ogren and myself, we split elementary, and we meet monthly with those building administrators, get out, visit classrooms when we can, and just talking about, where are you at on this journey? How can we help you problem solve? What support can we provide for you in your building? So that we're taking more of an individualized approach, while we also look at our system supports for improving inclusion. Lastly, well, not lastly, sorry, 2 more slides. Safety and behavioral supports. We know that safety and behavior continue to be at the forefront of discussions. So what are we doing? Safety-wise, we are working, we have another task force going, working to provide some onboarding, site communication, and supervision support for our classified staff that are coming in to work in our special education classrooms. How can we provide more support to those folks coming in? We've recognized that subs, when they come in and don't have training, that's a barrier to being able to be successful in the classroom. So how can we provide more support? We've also implemented a variety of data collection, analysis, and then intervention. We're tracking things like the use of restraint, and when we get those in, we can send out our intervention team to go and check in, problem solve. How can we work with the building? What supports can we offer to the team to help problem solve? So there's a variety of things that we're doing, tracking, using our data to help provide intervention and supports. Behavioral supports. We did enter into an agreement this year with the ESD. Candy Mountain Academy is the new behavior school that's operated by ESD 123. And we have added that as part of our continuum of services. So if teams evaluate and we have explored all of the resources that we're providing, and that is a need that remains for a building, we have the ability to access Candy Mountain Academy, and we have students who are receiving educational services there this year. We continue to have an intervention team that's called out to provide support when students are struggling, kids are dysregulated, staff need help with problem solving. They've also been critical to ensuring that kids receive services this year, despite some of our ability to keep a full workforce in special education. So they've been critical in ensuring that we don't ever see a dip in those services. And then we did create that Tier 2 middle school behavior program that we're hoping to hire a teacher this spring or summer and have them join us in that planning process and what that program will look like moving forward. Lastly, on this one for behavior supports, we do have a variety of regional consultants that we work with that when we have exhausted kind of our toolbox of resources, we can call on those folks to come in and provide support to our teams working with students here in the district. Lastly, we have our parent engagement. As we know, all families are key partners. We have a special education parent advisory committee. We attempt to meet quarterly or more, depending on the need. Right now, we have 5 to 8 families who are participating in those meetings with us, but we are always seeking new participants. We have an active link on our new special services website for any families interested in joining our parent advisory committee. We welcome you to go online, complete the form, and join our team. Some of our topics and the connections to our work, we get feedback on communication and presentations that we're going to do. Our upcoming topics, we're going to have them provide input on our website. Is it user-friendly for families? What information is missing? Is there more that we could be providing? One of the other things that we're looking at getting feedback on is our program names. It's kind of become confusing as we roll out multi-tiered systems of support because it's tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. And then special education, we've used tier 1, tier 2, tier 3. But we know that we don't want to further complicate things. So getting our staff feedback, getting parent feedback as we look at kind of names and making sure that the program remains the same. We just want to avoid any confusion. And then again, general feedback, just identifying strengths and opportunities for growth. With that, turn it over to you guys if you have any questions.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Mabry?
I do have a question. You sort of touched on it, and maybe during the special ed when there's disturbance in the classroom, do we identify locations where we take a person that needs a little bit more attention, and do we do that in a timely manner, react and take that person to where the rest of the class can continue while special attention is being given to whoever may need it?
That's a great question, and it's, I think, very situational because at times it may not be safe to move a child who's dysregulated, so sometimes it may mean having a plan. Most of our inclusion behavior programs, they are actually practicing room clears. They have a designated location. They have supplies that they can grab quickly because we know that when kids are dysregulated, that it's can create more trauma for them to go to a hands-on and attempt to move them. So sometimes we will room clear. Sometimes though, we do still have the ability to utilize restraints, but again, those are the most restrictive interventions. We try to avoid that at all costs, and it has to really be a situation where there's an imminent risk of serious bodily harm, which we work with our staff to clearly identify those circumstances. I would say that in practice, we try to keep a student and remove the folks in the classroom. It's generally the safest option, but we will problem solve and work it with buildings when the need arises.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Question?
So you covered a lot, and I actually would love to sit down with you because I have probably 100 questions, but I'm not going to ask 100 questions. I'm going to focus on one thing that you did briefly touch on, which was learning disabilities. You kind of, I know there's so much to go over, so you kind of focus on the tier 2 and 3 stuff a lot in inclusion, but like, I'm very concerned about the reading scores. I know that it's kind of a joint effort probably, but what processes do we have in place for identifying, dyslexia and things like that are, like, so that I'm just really concerned about just unwrapping that whole thing. I mean, I don't know if we have enough time to unwrap all that kind of stuff, but that's something I'm very, very concerned about, like training that. I'll just leave it broad for now, and maybe I'll ask a follow-up.
And I'm going to call on some of my colleagues up here who do a lot with the dyslexia screening.
I kind of prepped Alyssa. I told her before the meeting started that I might be asking this question.
So, and we can sit down and talk more.
Yes,
I
would like that. Yeah.
Dyslexia, we are ramping up, but we do have, the state is giving guidance. There's workforces or like a task force giving us guidance on what screeners to use, how often they need to be given, and we are following their guidance. We've trained this fall 20 teachers in our elementary schools it's called the Orton Gillingham. It's one of the best rated trainings for teaching how to read for our students who might be struggling with signs of dyslexia. It is very complicated. It is really hard to diagnose, but we know the earlier we catch it, the more success our students are going to have. We just have to really tease out if we have language learners, for example, and how we intervene.
So can I pause you really quick? So you mentioned Orton Gillingham or Gillingham or what is
Yes,
it? Gillingham. So that's a training that some teachers have.
Yes, it's 40 hours of training. So we did a group last year, we did a group this fall, and we will offer it again this
Is there a goal
summertime.
to have like a certain amount of certain percentage of teachers that have that type of training?
Right now, the goal is at least one specialist in every building. But we are rolling it out and working on it. It's hitting us really fast, and our teachers are getting together monthly. It is a huge focus.
There's a training called LETRS or LETRS, letters training. I think
That's Richland's
They do that in
program.
Richland, yeah.
I'm not familiar.
Okay, yeah, exactly. That's Richland's program. I was wondering if maybe that might be something to look at and
Okay, great.
and talk to them to see what they're doing. Okay, I guess I'll go ahead. I cut you off though. Sorry, you might been.
Well, I forgot where I
Oh.
was, so we're okay.
Okay, I think I would. Can we do a sit down? I mean, I'll schedule it with you later. But I would like to. Do
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Gabe, you have something?
Yeah, you mentioned training a couple times, and we just heard about it. What are we training like staff, like general staff who maybe have, the tier 2 students in their class? Are they getting training on how to handle whichever might come up, behavior issues or anything like that?
Yeah, so all of our staff have the ability to sign up and participate in our CPI training, which is first and foremost verbal de-escalation training. The other component of that is around the use of isolation and restraint in the Kennewick School District. So any staff member interested, building principals, encourage those folks to reach out to us in the special education department, and we can let them know when that training occurs. We then follow up with the building to better understand the nature of the request and make sure that it is something that we would move forward with that training. But I encourage folks that do have questions about that, reach out to their building principal, and then building principals reach out to me.
So a gen ed teacher could go through that training so they have the ability to learn to verbally de-escalate and potentially restrain a student if it came to that. A regular teacher could do that.
So what we generally try to do in a situation with a gen ed teacher, we offer a lot of building-based verbal de-escalation trainings. Our educational specialists, who also serve as our CPI instructors, will go out and do whole building or grade level. If there is a wing, certain teachers in the wing of a school that are heavily impacted by a student, we can do that training. If it is necessary that someone is trained, that is where a building principal would work with either Chad, Rosie, or myself to identify, is this something we need to move forward with? Oftentimes, if we're talking about general education, that would be necessary to get the team together, look at an evaluation, what are we doing, behavior plan. There's a lot of steps that we would take before that, but again, going to the building principal and making sure where are we at with the student's plan and program. When we talk about just using restraint, it's kind of jumping to the most restrictive intervention when we want to make sure that we're doing all we can to support them through our evaluation and positive behavior support plans.
Thank you.
So one more follow-up question. Is it possible, this seems like a hard ask, but is it possible to like pull numbers of our district compared to the state in identifying students with learning disabilities? Is that even a thing that can be done?
It's up there.
Yeah, we can absolutely get you
Yeah,
that.
it's on the report card, and we get it as part of our, like, I mean, when you're looking at special education or just students too, throughout our district, it's on either the OSPI report card, or I know I also get disaggregated special education data that would have that information as well.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to provide, and I can get that for you.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
That's all. That's all I got. I'll do everything else when.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Okay. London's just in time.
There she is.
Okay. Now we're on to unfinished business. Our topic of the day is policy 2333, instruction flag exercises. Dr. Pierce.
Bronson's are also here tonight, so I'll ask him to join me. Okay, so at the last board meeting, the direction provided from the board was to bring essentially two different versions of the policy back to this meeting for board consideration. So what I will do is bring up, let me see my versions here. The first version is the one I'll bring up on the screen. Okay, take just a second here. Oh, that's the wrong one, sorry, just a moment. Okay, so the first version of the modified 2333 is the same version essentially that you saw and discussed at the last meeting. The permanently language in the middle was modified to on a full-time basis, and that was based on direction that you gave at the previous meeting. And the third bullet was changed from multiples may not be displayed to no more than one copy of the same flag may be displayed. And that was based on direction from the previous meeting. So it was at the last meeting that the board discussed this version of the policy and asked for this version and another version to be brought forward. So I'm going to show you now the second version. And this second version further modifies the paragraph that you see here, and it changes schools to classrooms. So in this version, it says when displaying flags other than the United States flag in classrooms on a full-time basis, the following restrictions apply. Whereas the previous version said schools. In this version, the wording in the third bullet here says no more than 2 copies of the same flag may be displayed, whereas the other version says no more than 1. And Bronson and I believe that was the direction that you gave us and what we're bringing back for board discussion and consideration this evening. So with that, I don't know which one you want to start with, but I will turn it back over to President Connors.
Okay, since I was not here last time, I'm a little behind the curve. Would you like to start the conversation?
Do we need to make it as a motion and then start the conversation? Pose one or the other, or do we need clarification?
So usually when you have a discussion, someone makes a motion, seconds it, and then you discuss it.
Okay.
So I'll make a motion to start the discussion make a motion that we adapt the first version that's been submitted to us as is that motion for 2333 instruction for displaying flags for the Kennewick School District.
Okay. Have a second?
Yeah, I'll second it.
Okay, so first, second, so let's open this up for discussion.
I have a question for Bronson. Bronson, the way that we've amended this motion, would it be any difference in enforcing it for the district as it was before this even became instruction? Before we made this modification, would this install any new onus for the district?
You're talking about between the two versions?
No, between this and what we had before we even introduced this as a district, just our general flag policy. The changes we made here, would it be impactful?
It would be, just because you've added several things. So you never had language about size of flags and the amount of flags displayed, flags covering windows.
And if you want, I can bring up the current policy again for reference, or the very first version that shows the strike-throughs and additions from the original policy.
Would you bring up just the original policy, please?
Let's see. Let me see here. So it's 2333. Do it this way.
While you're looking at a point of clarification, I know that it was made in a public comment about not being able to have multiple American flags, but this policy does allow for multiple American flags.
Just give me 1 minute here.
And Bronson, maybe you can clarify this for me in terms of, I don't know if this is actually an amendment to what we're looking at, but could we change the effective date essentially, right? So we don't want, I personally, I mean, if we vote on this and if it did pass effective today, we don't want teachers showing up tomorrow having to try to hustle and bustle. So can we have an effective day?
You can set the effective date out
from here
after spring break or something.
Is that an amendment though? Like, do we have to make an amendment, or is that just something we can discuss? And if we were to agree,
yeah. So I would,
that,
if you vote on this motion, I would have Ron amend his motion to include that effective date. The policy won't go into effect until, and then certain date.
And I was able to bring up current policy. Current policy 2333 is flag exercises, and this is the current policy language.
For such a hot button topic, we're all awful quiet here this evening.
I mean, I've been ready to vote on this thing for like 3 months, so I would like to just pass it and move on. So,
I'm sure you would.
But we have two different versions.
So I don't know what I need to talk about. I don't know what.
I think that's problematic. There are two different versions. What are you voting? Which one are you voting on?
The motion on the floor is for the first version.
And again, that motion was to start a discussion.
Yeah. So, but just to clarify, the motion on the floor is for the first one.
This one, right?
Correct. Well, in that case, I'm going to jump in here. So the key of any policy, as was brought up this evening, was to bring clarity and make things easier. We're not doing that. If this made this policy better, we would have passed it. It would have been a no-brainer. We would have zipped it through. We didn't make it better. We made it convoluted. We made it difficult to enforce. We made it a mess. Nothing in this policy furthers our economic or our academic goals. Nothing. So to go down this road, to me, doesn't make any sense. People can call me un-American, call me unpatriotic. I can only imagine what everyone's going to say about all this. The bottom line is, we're not making this policy better in my mind. So, that being said, I don't see that we have made a good policy.
So,
yes, sir.
So from what you just said, you're thinking that just stay with the original two?
I'm saying stay with the original.
Change and just to paraphrase.
Stay with the original. We've got this so buggered up here that I don't see what we're doing. We're teaching, in my mind, we're leaning towards teaching our kids to be intolerant. Going out in the world, all these kids are going to face stuff that they don't like. That's just reality. We have to find a way to teach tolerance and acceptance, whether you like it or not. That's reality. So.
Well,
please.
Yeah, so I mean, I hear what you're saying, Mike. As far as the policy, I think passing through or whatever, we decided to push it down the road so we could do a student survey.
Mm-hmm.
We decided to hold off on voting on it last week because you were not here.
Thank you. I
so
appreciate that.
Respect for your vote. We did a student survey.
Mm-hmm.
We got results from that. The students in that survey, and correct me if I'm wrong, London, but the students felt like they didn't want political or social justice flags in the classroom. That was the overwhelming, I think, percentages. So I think at this point, this has been over 90 days. We've been going down this road. So we need to vote and move on from this policy because it's just continued to divide those, I think, in the community. So
I wholeheartedly agree.
It's time to make a decision, I think, as a board and move on and go on from there. So
I agree.
I also don't understand how the comments or your comment about intolerance, I don't understand. I don't understand how this is breeding intolerance or hate or anything. What it's doing is it's promoting the American flag. It's saying the American flag is the most prominent, most important flag. And so it's like you can look at anything a couple different ways, right? Is 50% half full or half empty? I mean, I just don't look at this as like suppressing or tolerant. All flags are allowed. I mean, so it's not suppressing, it's not removing, it's not banning. But what it does is the language specifically props up the American flag that we all live under. And to me, it's really more about focusing on the American flag, and it's not about eliminating, because there's nothing to be eliminated, right? Every flag is still allowed. It's just promoting our country's flag. So when you say that, I don't even know why you're saying that.
Well, because that's how it is.
I'm sorry, can you put the original back up there again? Because I thought we did pay homage to the, I'm saying that wrong, I'm sorry.
And I can maybe speak to that too a little bit. So our current policy states the following: it's flag exercises. When the board asked that we draft a policy to bring back to you, the first thing we start doing is looking at legal references and what does the RCW say. One thing that we discovered in that, and I'll bring up if we can have it in.
While you doing that, ask one quick question. Sorry.
That's okay.
It just says flags. Let's make it clear. When we say in that original document, when it says flag, we're talking about the United States flag. The ceremonies, it just says flag exercises.
Yeah, and the legal reference is United States flag, so the language doesn't spell it out, but it is US flag. So one thing just to remember that we shared, I don't remember which meeting it was, but at one of the meetings, was when the first draft update came, we realized that this language, the flag of the United States and the flag of the state shall be prominently installed, displayed, and maintained in schools. The U.S. flag being in good condition shall be displayed during school hours at every school site and in every school classroom. That is language in the law. So we took that language from the law and put it in the policy. So I just want you, another potential option for you to consider would be to take this language because it's just simply what the law says. And even if we don't have a policy saying it, we're still going to follow the law because the law always trumps policy. So this language is legal language that is not currently in our flag exercises policy that speaks to the importance of displaying the American flag that's in law that could be in this policy. All this other part is really about other restrictions and things. So another option would be just if you wanted to update the current policy to reflect current law, if that makes sense.
It does, and I do like that.
So I think for me that the issue that I have with the original one is that when I go into a classroom and I see like this a different flag, regardless of what kind of flag it is. When I see that flag 17 times hung all over the place, and it is clearly the flag of the classroom. It is like, and the American flag has a second or third sideshow to it. That to me is not okay, right? I mean, so regardless of what the flag it is. So the problem with this to me is it doesn't address that. It doesn't promote the promise of the American flag. I can go in a classroom and I can think that that's whatever flag, right, there's 10 of those hung over a window. They're plastered everywhere, all around the whole entire classroom. It's like we're paying homage to something else, and that does happen. I mean, I've been to classrooms and schools and I have seen that. I don't want to name them out, but that's definitely happening.
Okay, so we're at the point now. You guys want to vote on this, or where are we?
No more discussion. We vote.
There you go. No more discussion. All right. Patty, I'll call for the roll call vote, please.
So we're going to vote with it effective tomorrow and not amend it to potentially have the policy go a couple weeks from now.
Maybe like after spring break or something wrong.
I amend it to include that it would be effective after spring break.
Second.
Okay.
May I just ask, I just want to be clear, is this version here what the board is currently voting on?
Correct. The first version, yes.
Okay, with the revision stating that it's not going to take effect after spring break. There you go. Okay, with that, Patty, I'll call for the roll call vote, please.
Okay, Mr. Galbraith?
Yes.
Mr. Valentine?
Yes.
Ms. Sundvik?
No.
Mr. Mabry?
No.
And Mr. Connors?
No.
So now.
Okay. Okay. Does not pass.
Okay. So now, and I'm just asking a question. Now we can go to the next version, or do we introduce? Did someone make a motion introducing what Tracy had told us about the legalese been added?
Well, you can do that, Ron, if you want to make a motion to pass another version of this.
Okay.
Then you can do that.
Gabe has a question.
No, I just, the difference in the version is from 1 to 2, so would be no point to make a motion and re-vote the same way we just voted. So it failed 3 to 2. It's time to move on. So let's.
I disagree. I think I was being rude with that. What I'm saying is that there was some information shared that we have some legalese. And I actually think that legalese should be introduced into policy as it is. Right now, it's not documented anywhere, the legal, that part that Tracy just pointed out. I think we should, and we can, I think we should include that in our policy as it is right now. So my next redemption effort was to introduce a policy that not necessarily include all the other stuff that, like you said, has been voted down. But I would like to see if we can introduce that legalese into our flag policy.
So Ron, essentially what you're saying is the first full paragraph of the policy that you just voted on is what you're referring to.
The part that Tracy was saying is straight out of the.
So I think without just all the formatting and so forth, it would look like this. Does that make sense, what I'm saying?
It does.
It would take the current, what you're suggesting is take the current flag exercises policy, which is this.
Yes.
Change it to flag displays and exercises and take the language, this language that's found in the RCW right here and put it in the policy.
Yes, I'd like to make a motion that we made the changes that we just discussed to 2333 as our flag display and exercise policy.
I'll second.
If not, Patty, I'll call for the roll call vote.
So when we,
I'm sorry.
so when we talk about flag exercises, do we need to look at where it says minimum once a day? How do we do that? So does everybody just do that different in the schools? I think the wording could be a little clearer on the minimum potentially. So is that first hour, second hour, is that over announcements? Is that each individual teacher has their own will to do it? They could do it at 2?
No, every school does it at the beginning of the day. Some schools, like they do some things first and then do the flag, but it's always done like over the office intercom and said all together as a school. So it's not up to each individual teacher to lead students in the pledge. It's a school-wide thing that happens. It just might not happen at the same minute every time, because sometimes there's like a homeroom or something and then they go and then they do. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so then it's done over the intercom at all the schools at whatever time they have in the morning to do it. First hour, second hour, whatever that may be. Okay.
Good, okay. Other questions, comments? Now I'll call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith,
Yes.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Ms. Sunvik,
Yes.
Mr. Mabry,
Yes.
Mr. Connors.
Yes. Perfect. Thank you very much. Okay, next on our agenda, Board Policy 1115, student representatives to the Board of Directors. Dr. Pierce.
Let me just say this real quick. Okay, so I believe that the direction from the board after the last meeting was to bring back the student representative policy revisions for further discussion, but I'm not 100% sure. I have not made any changes over what you saw last time. What I believe, based on board discussion, is that there was consensus. There was not, I mean, there was I don't remember, honestly, Patty, you have to help me if the board voted last time or not. Mike wasn't here, and I can't remember if there was a vote.
It was a tie.
A tie vote, thank you. Okay, and I think the consensus through the discussion was that the part of the updates that the board discussed at the retreat that had to do with having 2 board representatives, like a rep and then a rep in training, or a representative-elect, was something that everybody was in agreement on. It was the part of the policy amendments having to do with the advisory vote where there was discussion and disagreement.
There's 2 things. One was, does the student rep vote at all? And then 2 was, do they vote at the beginning or at the end?
At the beginning, at the end, yeah.
And so I'll jump in. So when we're, like, one thing that Ron keeps saying over and over, which he's right, is listen to the students, listen to students, listen to students. And I mean, to me, I think we asked London, she said she would like to vote at the end, and that makes sense to me, I mean, heck, even sometimes I'm up here and we get so, we're asking all these things and I don't even know which way I'm supposed to be voting, yes or no sometimes, because it's so confusing, right, and so I just don't want to put her in that situation, really. But I think we need her opinion, so I think in the discussion we ask and we get that feedback, and then we all vote, because that's our job, and then at the end she can decide whether that's something she wants to vote on or not, or whether it's too rich or not, and now she's had time to kind of digest how it's played out. And so, I mean, I can ask London again, would you like to, if you were voting, would you rather vote at the beginning or the end, if you had that choice?
I think I'd prefer to go at the end.
I really conceded this. If London is willing to vote, I just wanted that person in that chair, not just you, London, to feel counted and valuable. So when I was talking about a vote, beginning or end, you have that luxury to say pass or I do not want to vote. So I don't care if it's at the beginning or end, as long as we honor that seat and make them feel part of this council. That's all I want.
I guess my concern with voting after, and I would, strongly support what you're saying, Ron, is the students can abstain, just as we could if we needed to. So advisory means to give advice or to give information about what our student reps have found out from their colleagues. So if we all vote and then the student rep gives their information, how will that have advised us in how we make our choices and how we vote? So I don't know how advice that comes afterwards then will have been somewhat discounted, I think, in our votes. And so that would be why I want to hear from the student rep if they're comfortable giving us that information beforehand.
Can we do that as part of the discussion, like as a discussion point, make it a point to make sure we ask the student without, because the vote that's a yes or no. It's not really, and again, sometimes it's a confusing yes or no, where we can actually give her some time to really hear her out and listen to her as part of the discussion. To me, that's the advisory part of it.
Before we vote.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely, before we vote to talk.
So they would give their advisory information.
Yes, and then the vote after. Yeah, I think that kind of solves both sides.
I think that's redundant if you're going to do both, but then I'm not sure why you would give an advisory vote at the end if you've already given the information, because advisory is you give advice pre-voting. So that's a little redundant to do both.
Well, but I think at the same time, we're also allowing the student representative to
vote.
Well, yes, we're allowing them to vote, but I think what we're allowing them to chime in on any topic whenever they feel like it. And again, if they have something they want to speak about, we're always welcoming that feedback. So anyway, and I guess to me, I'm not sure it makes a big difference, whether I vote first or last or middle. It's still a vote. So, and regardless, it's nothing more than an advisory vote anyway. And this is ultimately their position to, basically stay where they are. So, anyway, it's, again, and I think that if the, since sadly London is the trial balloon here, she gets to, see how it works.
That's what she said. Her design was.
Yeah, and I think we should honor that. It makes it pretty easy. So, in my mind, but again, I'm one. So anyway.
So, so I've shared my concerns with the advisory vote twice in the last 2 meetings. We've discussed it. So I want to give a real life example here real quick and see where this goes. So London, we just voted on the flag policy. Had you voted yes, would you be treated or potentially be treated different by any of your peers or teachers at your school, do you think? Do you think the advisory vote sets up for potential different treatment based on the way you would vote in a meeting?
That's a leading question.
Yeah.
So.
Okay, so
She can always abstain.
Okay, but we want them to vote because that's why we're giving them the vote, right? So we don't want them to abstain 100% of the time. We want to hear the student's voice, right? So is that potential?
Okay.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from. I know my teachers personally. I don't see them entirely like taking that into consideration and like negatively like in like our relationship in any way or like in the classroom. And then I definitely do see, I could see some teachers doing that, not any that I really have, but I have, there are some teachers who I think could take that into account even if they aren't entirely like trying to. And I know some of my peers, not a lot of them pay attention to all the school board matters, but those who do, I could see potential for different treatment. Yeah.
Could I cross-examine? So when you say your discussion, when you hold, and thank you for doing so, you've helped us by discussing things. Could those same feelings be deduced from what you're discussing, how you're discussing the fact? If you're sharing your opinion without voting, but you're still sharing your opinion, couldn't they pull that out of what you're sharing and also hold that against you?
Yeah, I could see that, yeah.
And I'm going to chime in here. Whoever's sitting in that seat is in a leadership position. And leaders have to make tough decisions and make calls that are uncomfortable. And that's part of being an adult and a productive member of society. And so ultimately by sitting there, you are exposing yourself to criticism from all sides. But also you're setting yourself up for success going forward. So I guess part of this, Gabe, and to address this to you, I think that the big issue is that this person that we're putting in here is ultimately wanting to be involved and understands that there are controversial issues. And again, they can certainly abstain if it's something that they're truly concerned about. We always want to give them that option. But ultimately, as I think of the what do I have, third or fourth person now, every one of them, it has absolutely would have, in my view, would have absolutely voted on these things 100% of the time. Can you imagine Zach being elected? I mean, he would have just been doing the happy dance here if we told him he could vote on stuff.
He already knows about it. He actually was doing the happy dance.
Yeah, exactly. So, but again, and then that's nothing against you, but Zach was very involved.
I know. I've been talking
He
to
was
Zach, yes.
up to his eyeballs in it.
Yeah.
So, but anyway, that is more commentary than statements. But again, I just wanted to throw that out there because I believe that you are in a leadership position and that's what you're hoping to search for, and you're doing a wonderful job. So, yes, sir.
I'm gonna give you one more example of a student. Before Zach, we had a student that was very, 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 very good at math. And Vic put a slide up, and the student was kind enough to point out a flaw in Vic, a brain man over there, Vic.
That's in my work correctly.
So if we had put that up on the board for a vote, I bet you an ice cream cone, he would have voted against it, and probably done so. So it's just an example of, we pick the best of the best when we pick the people for that chair. And I'm not going to repeat what he said, but I'm in agreement with what he said. But I hear what you're saying also.
Yeah.
Look, as you know, as we all know, when we sit in this chair, there are people that disagree with what we say, and they let us know it. But we sat in this chair because we said we would be able to take that on and make sound decisions. That's what I like to pass on to that person in that chair, the ability to do that.
Yeah, so just to clarify though, nothing changes from the way we currently do business with the student rep with the exception of saying London, yes or no. That's it. Because she can share her opinions on any topic, and we go to her when we have questions. So the only thing we're literally changing in this point is having the student rep vote yes or no, commit to one side or the other, rather than letting them share what they found out and let us elected officials make the decision and handle all the issues with the disagreements and all the other stuff that comes with it. The student rep shouldn't have to deal with any of that potential stuff.
Are you saying that they wouldn't share their information?
No, I'm saying the student rep shares information just like she did with the student survey. We take that into account, we vote. Other than that, we're just asking her to say yes or no based on the survey. And we've heard people say the survey wasn't conducted right or this or that and the other. So now we've already instigated that situation now where people are questioning that particular situation or that survey. She's not elected. She shouldn't have to deal with anything that comes with picking one side or the other. We are elected. We chose to do this. So again, we can move forward and vote. I'm just saying I'm concerned with a lot of different things regarding the student reps vote. I don't discount what they say. I just don't necessarily agree with having them say yes or no.
So for our students who will be chosen, or two that will be chosen for next year, if we were to say that they give an advisory vote and they give it, let's say, pre the rest of the board voting, those students who signed up to potentially be board reps, student board reps, would know that. Because that would be in there and that would be shared with them. So, you know, as Micah said, and Ron, we do get the best of the best. Those students who may have, or their families who may have concerns about that, may then choose that is not comfortable for them, and that there may be something else that they would choose to do. There will be students who they and their families would find that very comfortable and something that they would want to do, and that might make some students choose to apply when they might not have before. So, you know, I think it goes on both sides, but those students who apply would know that if we were to choose to do that.
So I'm going to jump in here. So London, I'm going to come back to you. Is an advisory vote something you would like to do? And that's absolutely up to you, because I see Tracy's waving her finger over here. I'm going to give you 1 second. We could also make this retroactive, you know, or proactive to next year if that's something that you say, hey, look, I didn't sign up for this, I don't want to do this. We can totally work that in. Yeah.
Absolutely.
And then we can put that into it. So knowing that whoever's coming up, hey, you know, you have the opportunity for an advisory vote. Again, it doesn't count, but you also, as far as having any legal ramifications, but allows you to have a voice. But again, that's absolutely up to you. Okay. Don't you love this?
This is great, yeah.
It's in your resume.
Yes. I definitely see the positives and the negatives, and I believe that the power to abstain is really important, and I appreciate that. So if I do end up with a vote, the ability to abstain, I think, would be very important, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about the vote. I'm okay with voting.
At this time for you?
Yes.
Thank you. Yes.
One other potential thought, and I don't know if this differs from abstaining, but the policy could read that the student will be offered the opportunity to provide an advisory vote. So as something was being discussed, even before, you know, it could be like, hey, student rep, is this something that you'd like to provide an advisory vote on? And at that time, the student could say yes or no. I see that maybe different from abstaining on a vote. And then it, you know, based on the topic, it would be up to the student. That's just another potential modification that could be made.
Yes.
And so would that option to vote be given during the meeting, or would that be discussed with the student rep previous and saying, we're going to talk about these, and then the student rep could say yay or nay?
You know, we could do it as the agenda. I could connect with the student rep. I mean, we could do it however, we could enact that and, you know, and implement it in any way that the board wanted to.
Because I see that as a good option, because then that doesn't put them on the spot, and it could be discussed and they could have time to think about it.
Dave, is that more palatable, or just, you don't want any vote at all?
I don't agree with them voting at all, so I guess regardless of how you amend or word the policy, I guess that shares my vote.
Should we make a motion and?
We certainly can.
Dan, you want to do it? You're the best at this.
I thought, yeah, I was going to say, I think we already had a motion and I seconded it.
Oh,
I
okay.
think so, Patty.
I don't know, do you want me to write?
Do we have a motion? and
We don't
second?
have a motion on this one.
Oh, all right, then that is my fault, I apologize. I would entertain a motion for policy 1115.
Question.
Yes.
Does the voting? Okay. Does the advisory vote go in with that? Because I'm reading this at the end. And it doesn't, it's not so
I think so.
clear.
I think there's more.
There we go.
Is it possible to type out the motion? I think Tracy
Here,
has amended.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, so the regulation is, that can be modified. I can just modify the regulation if what the policy you adopt, make sure that the regulation aligns to it. But the actual policy language, what the board would be voting on is 1115. The current language here would all be struck through, and the policy would read as follows here. And the part that you're really talking about is this last part, and I don't know if you want me to include this modified language here, but it says student representatives will not attend executive sessions or hold board offices. The student representatives seated on the dais will be given the option to provide the board with advisory votes on agenda items as follows, blah, 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 pro, con, or abstain.
I think there was talk about before or after, right? Is that-
Yeah, I'm sorry, it does say,
We'll be given the option to provide.
And then
it
when
says
we talk
immediately
about the
before the
option.
board votes on an agenda item, the student representatives will be asked to provide their advisory vote. The student representative, I should say, because it's just the one on the dais, will be asked to provide their advisory vote, whether pro, con, or abstain. I think with this modification about given the option prior to the board meeting, I would say to the student rep, tonight is the night that the board is voting on XYZ. Do you want to be provided the opportunity to give an advisory vote on this item? And the board rep could say no or yes. And then that would be communicated to the board and to Patty, so we would know if the student rep said, no, I don't want to weigh in on that. I could still give, feedback or whatever, but if they don't want to vote, then they wouldn't be called on to vote.
If the student rep says yes, then on the roll calls.
Correct.
She's at the end. 'Cause
Well,
that says immediately before.
Yeah, and so that would be another modification to what's here, if you want me to modify that.
Yeah, I think that we're mostly in agreement with.
I wouldn't agree with that.
Okay, I think.
So before a motion is made, then we need to determine pre or post.
How can we do that? We can't say before a motion is made, because the discussion happens after the motion is made.
Before the board.
It would be, how it reads right now is immediately before the roll call vote,
Okay.
you'd turn to the student because it's an advisory vote. You'd want, so they're giving their advice prior to the board voting.
Correct.
Diane's vindicated. Perfect.
Okay, but I think that what I heard, I don't, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Mike, Ron, and myself, and London all agreed that the student advisory vote, not the advice, but the vote would come at the end.
Well, they'd only be, so now I'm a little confused, because the only vote that they would be given would be an advisory vote.
Correct.
Correct.
At
So-
the end, at the end.
We were talking about allowing them to give their vote last.
At the end,
Yeah,
okay. So I think
last.
I would just reframe it then as an, I don't know. I'm just grappling a little bit with, I think the idea of an advisory vote is to say before the board votes, turn to the student and say, you know, advise us on
Give
how
your
you would vote
advice.
on this if you had a vote, right? So if it's done after, then you're not really getting, I know you're getting feedback and input, but you're not really getting an advisory vote. Does that make
No,
sense?
that makes sense.
And you can do it however you want. I would just think we would maybe want to change the wording if you go that route, because it's not technically an advisory vote. But we can do that, just, yeah.
I would like to do that. Based on our student feedback.
So you have to make a amendment.
I mean, I'm just sort of doing it on the fly, I guess. Do you want me to do that? Let me figure out something here. What could we call it? Does anybody have any suggested wording for not advisory, but sort of a, like not counting, not a non-binding vote or a not counted vote or something other than advisory?
Yeah, probably non-binding.
With the, not,
It takes student voice out, but.
It doesn't take the voice out because she's still sharing what she wants to share when she wants to share it. We just talked about, we're literally making them pick yes or no. So I guess either way, we're gonna vote on it, or however we want to vote on it, but we keep bringing up, we're taking out student voice, but we're not taking out student voice because the students have literally shared what they want to share when they need to share it. So this misconception that we're taking their voice out, we're not doing that. We're literally asking them, London, yes or no? Pick a side. That's all this policy is doing, with the exception of the two folks and stuff.
Dr. Pierce, just the blue advisory on the second line of the A there.
yeah, a non-binding vote. I know it looks funny, but it's the A.
Okay, it's just.
So I think if with the blue wording added, I think what this would look like would be this: prior to, let's just take whatever policy. Board's going to vote on X policy, and we know that that's on the agenda for that evening. Prior to the meeting, I would check with the student board rep and I'd say, London, do you want to provide a non-binding vote on item X, on policy X? And London would say yes or no, that you want to wait, you want to have an opportunity to give your non-binding vote. If she says no, then we just wouldn't even ask her. If she said yes, after the board voted on policy X or item X, the board would turn to London and say, the board's now voted on this. London, what is your non-binding vote on this matter? And she could say, I vote pro, con, or abstain. That's how that would look if you adopt this policy.
Yep.
I don't mean to complicate that. I almost say don't give it a vote. Just listen to the discussion and then move on. And maybe we address the vote maybe when we mature more as a board, but right now I think it'd be an insult, honestly. If I was sitting in that chair and these grown-ups have already voted, yes, no, it means nothing. I just say that's no vote. I'm sorry, and that's not what you can discuss with the best of them, but we don't need to take a baby you by saying, now what's your vote after we voted and it's already determined.
You would have her feedback before you voted though, right?
I think you're at the dinner table. I think you're at the dinner table, and this is simplistic, but you're determining whether to have turkey or ham. And London loves turkey, but we sit here and vote. Sorry, we're gonna have ham. And then we say, what do you think about that, London? We're gonna have ham. And you say, but I wanted turkey.
That's not the situation.
It is. It's okay. Let's go to the flags. Let's say we sit here and we put a flag to a vote in, and we pass the flag, and London sits there and say, I don't want a flag. What value did that add?
Why didn't you talk to London about it during the discussion? Why did you ignore
What does
her?
it matter? London says what she said, and we vote anyway.
Yeah.
And we say we want the flag, and now we're gonna look at her and say, and you want? And she's gonna say, I didn't want the flag in the first place. I can't.
So my question would be, did you ignore her during while she was giving you her advice?
No, but the weighted vote of the board was that you want the flag. That's what all of us voted, whether it was 3-2, one, But then we turn to her and say, that person, I'm sorry, because I don't want you to think I'm talking to you, London. That person sitting in that chair, and we look at her and say, and no matter what she says, it just doesn't count.
So, okay, can I jump in here real quick?
Sure.
So, if we go back to putting the advisory vote first, does that make you feel better about things?
Personally, yes, because we've heard and we know how strong that person feels about it, so strong that they will vote yes. But I don't discredit what Gabe is saying.
Correct.
But that person has the right to abstain. But yes, I think if that person is part of the voting process, even in an advisory vote, that advice was just given. My advisory vote is yes and no. Then we vote, taking possibly one of us, all of us, take in consideration of that vote to help us make our vote.
What if you were sitting out to dinner and you said, hey, London, what do you want, turkey or ham? And she says, I'd like ham. And then you talk about it, and then you say, we're going to have turkey. And then she's like, but why'd you ask me? I don't know, London, that's what we just did to her. We asked her.
Both ways you did that.
But we asked her, she said she wanted to vote at the end. I mean, that's what the student, we asked the student. I mean, we're up here speaking for the student, but we just asked the student, she's already provided that feedback, and we're ignoring her advice.
I apologize. I can't get my point across, so I say do away with the vote.
Well, we have a motion on the table, right?
No.
No, not yet.
So we didn't motion to have it, to just open the discussion on the policy?
Well, we didn't supposed to.
That's my fault.
Yeah. So make a motion so we can vote on it. I suggest you make a motion.
I move that we adopt the policy 1115 as written on the board.
With the blue?
With the blue.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, just-
With the corrections, with the student having the opportunity to vote at the end.
Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Second. Any other thoughts and discussions? Comments? If not, I will call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith,
No.
Mr. Valentine,
Yes.
Ms. Sunvik,
No.
Mr. Mabry,
Abstain.
Mr. Connors.
I'm going to vote yes.
Thank you.
And this is a good example because we know London's opinion on it, and then we all voted.
And it was
2-2 with an
2-2.
extension.
So it
Okay.
does not pass. All right.
So what do we do now? Do we kick it down the road here? Do we try and make some more changes, or do we, what's the go forward plan?
I thought Ron made a good comment earlier about the board needs to work this out in the future.
What changes would you guys like to see in order to move this along?
I would strike the voting. I'd be fine with the other stuff, with the 2 reps, all that stuff. I personally would strike the voting.
I personally would strike the voting before and let it be at the end.
I would like to include the advisory vote beforehand as an advisory vote.
Okay, so I've got two parts here. So we've got either we put it back in with an advisory vote at the beginning, or we do away with it completely.
The voting.
The advisory vote completely.
And I think you could make a motion to, I mean, I could fuss with it, so it's like, here's what you were voting on. You could make a motion to put one of those options versions on the table for discussion and vote on it, and then the other one if the first one doesn't pass.
Should suggesting somebody do that.
Need a motion.
Well, I personally don't want to continue to kick it down the can, so I'll make a motion that we approve student rep to the board of directors policy 1115 as it was written with the advisory vote before the board vote.
Okay, so let me put that option back up here then. Just, so I think, with this still given the option to provide? Like,
They could choose to advise to vote or not.
Sure, yeah, leave as that, yeah.
okay,
sure.
so let me just to provide, so let me just make sure the wording is clear so you know what you're voting on. With, okay. I don't know, there's some weird formatting here, but I think, sorry.
That makes
It's
sense.
like multiple versions, so I think it would read like this. Student representatives will not attend exec sessions or hold board offices. The student rep seated on the dais will be given the option to provide the board with advisory votes on agenda items as follows immediately before the board votes. The student rep will be asked to provide their advisory vote, pro, con, or abstain.
Yeah, works for me.
Yeah,
Yep,
okay.
That's
So
my motion.
That's what the
Okay,
motion
there's
is.
our motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Any other comments or concerns? Questions?
You know my concern, we're ignoring our student.
Gotcha. Okay. No other comments. I will call for the roll call vote, please.
Mr. Galbraith,
Nope.
Mr. Valentine,
No.
Ms. Sunvik,
Yes.
Mr. Mabry,
Yes.
and Mr. Connors.
I'm going to go with yes. Sorry, Lynn.
Sorry, London, for ignoring your feedback.
We didn't ignore it. We talked through it. It was not ignored in any way, shape, or form.
Let's respect it.
Okay, next on the list, new business. New student behavior restrooms. Dr. Pierce and London will be presenting.
London.
It's got her name on there.
Nice.
I put London's name on there. I'll do most of the talking, but I did want to honor the work of the Superintendent Student Advisory Council, and London is part of that. So I definitely want her to chime in and elaborate in any way that would be helpful. So, okay. So at the last board meeting, the board raised some questions about, or concerns about bathrooms at our high schools in terms of like cleanliness and how bathroom passes and things are being implemented. So I thought it'd be helpful to give a little bit of background information, because this whole issue of restroom accessibility and cleanliness and what's the word I'm looking for? Kids doing, things in bathrooms, like messing them up and TikTok kind of things, right? Came up at as a topic that the Superintendent Student Advisory Council wanted to talk about this year. So they identified cleanliness and behavior as an issue they wanted to discuss. And so we spent a couple of meetings earlier this fall, really working with the group to define the issue, to get from them some examples and specifics about what's happening, what they see happening at their schools, to articulate interests that they have about this issue, and then to help brainstorm and kind of winnow down a big brainstorm list of recommendations that they think would be helpful to help address the issue. And then those recommendations and ideas were shared with high school principals. So I just want to show you what their work was, because it was really, they took, you know, again, they wanted to talk about this, and then they were very serious and spent a lot of time really digging into the issue. So the overall issue that they identified is lack of restroom cleanliness, vandalizing and vaping, and that because of those things, restrooms get closed, and then there's a lack of access to bathrooms. So they gave a lot of specifics, and I won't read all of these things to you. And if London, you know, anytime you want to add anything, just go ahead and chime in. But like I mentioned, you know, TikTok things that people are doing, overall cleanliness, just they raised the issue that in some schools the bathrooms are a little like less respected because they're older, and versus Kennewick High School, where there's brand new restrooms, and there was, you know, a feeling that because of the facilities being new, there was more respect being shown to those facilities. They identified, at least their perspective, it's the younger students in the high schools that are mainly offending, and that, you know, just some of the bathrooms are older and not very, there's toilets clogged and they don't smell good and things like that. You can see all the issues that were identified here. They have an interest, obviously, in, well, I should say obviously, but this is a great leadership group, and they don't want to see their bathrooms being mistreated. They don't want to see vandalism in their schools. They want a good, clean environment. They want the bathrooms to be open and accessible. They want to make sure that they're well kept and they're soap and they're clean and all of those kinds of things. So their ideas really had, you know, they had a variety of ideas. Some of these things they understand, you know, are more affordable than others and more feasible than others. So, you know, they talked about having regular check-ins, rounds by custodians, more adults monitoring the restrooms, more reminders to students about what behavior is expected. Again, more bathroom checks, making sure that there's consequences for students when they're found to have done something wrong in the bathroom, that they lose privileges, not bathroom privileges, but they lose, you know, the ability to be unsupervised and, you know, able to, like, they don't want them to be able to vandalize again, and steeper consequences for repeat offenders. They wanted more attention put on ninth graders, because again, they feel like it's mostly the ninth graders who are doing these things. They had an interest in some of the older bathrooms, you know, could they be upgraded? Again, these things come with expense, so it's not, they understand they're not all feasible to do overnight, but they had a lot of good ideas. Some of the things that are happening in schools right now, so I asked for some input from principals to find out what are they doing at the schools. Again, we shared the feedback from the students, and so they're trying to provide a little more, and I think this is the question that came up last meeting about these color coding hall passes. So there's a couple schools doing that, one with a vest, like where this vest is a bathroom pass that is a certain color so they know which wing you're in. So it's easier to identify like where you're supposed to be, because if there's a nearby bathroom to my classroom in this wing, but I'm really going over to this other wing and vandalizing it, you know, that's what they're trying to say, like use the nearest bathroom, and they want to be able to visibly see who's out about in the hallways. So one school's doing that with lanyards and one school's doing that with vests. Other schools are having to lock bathrooms when there's significant cleanup or maintenance required. You know, if all the toilets have been plugged because of some TikTok thing where they've put a bunch of stuff in the toilets, those bathrooms have to get closed so they can be, you know, maintenance can get in there before they're accessible again. So these are all of the strategies in use currently, and so this is just everything I know about this issue that I wanted to share with the board. London, did I miss any big parts?
No.
Okay. Do you want to vote on this? I'm kidding. There's nothing to vote on. I'm kidding. So with that, I don't know what else. I'm not sure what the board, if you would like more information or.
So with the color wearing, London, I guess I have two questions about that. Would or do some students feel uncomfortable about that? If there were a student who has some specific physical needs, they need to use the bathroom frequently. And before the teacher would just say, when you need to go, just go. So now the student has to wear a bright neon green, if that's their hallway or wherever they're at. Would that make a student feel uncomfortable? And then secondly, with that, is there a time limit for those students generally? Obviously, sometimes you have to spend more time in the bathroom, but generally, is there a time, and are there more than 2 students allowed out of the classroom at one time?
Okay, so for the students feeling uncomfortable, I have heard from a lot of students. So the vests are at Kennewick, and I've heard from a lot of people that they do not like the vests at all. Like, because most people, they just kind of carry it and then they just kind of like walk to the bathroom and it's like dragging on the ground. They're on their phone and then like they put it on the ground, they go to the bathroom, they pick it up, they bring it back into class. So they see that part of it and like the lack of hygiene in that itself. So that's mainly what I've heard. And then, I'm forgetting your other question.
Yeah. How many students could go at one time, and then for what length of time?
So typically, I know most teachers, they kind of have like an expectation set where it's usually like 5-10 minutes. And students, like, there are some certain scenarios where it's not really implemented, but if you have a student who's like continuously, like every day they're gone for like 15 minutes, like the student or the teacher will typically restrict that. Or I believe that we're trying to set a time limit on it. And I'm not entirely sure if that's like a school-wide thing, but I know most teachers have their own personal limits. And then each classroom has 2 vests, so 2 people are allowed out at a time.
Thanks.
Any other questions?
One, I would love to have us look into investing in vape detectors. I think from my quick research, roughly they're $300 to $500 a detector, and that detects vape, marijuana, those kind of things. So I would love for us to maybe look into that route to potentially address vaping. The other question I have is, it seems like we have no consistency amongst the schools, like they're doing different things. So I do believe Southridge uses like a smart pass or a sign out like that.
It's
an app. Sounds like we're using vests at Kennewick. Is there not like smart pass or another app that we can utilize that tracks all this stuff so we can easily pull who's going and coming and going, when they signed out, when they signed in, to address these things? Because I can only imagine the cost of continued cleanup and painting stalls because of graffiti and yada, yada, yada adds up. And while we can't create single-use restrooms at this point, like we've talked about previously, maybe something like that can at least help us, find who may be abusing it. And then we would also need to figure out a way to hold, frequent flyers accountable.
And the app does do that, and
Yeah.
that's why they instituted it. If it's used all the time, and sometimes it doesn't get used, but it does create a paper trail of who, where, and when.
I do know some schools were using an app, especially when we had all the COVID restrictions and had to make sure that, you know, there was distance and all those kinds of things. I don't know what all of the downsides are and why some schools are choosing to use it and some schools are using other strategies. When it comes to this kind of level of decision making, we typically leave it up to the school principal to work with their staff and determine what's going to work best at the particular school. You know, we provide, and you know, when the principals meet, they talk about what works and what they're doing. I think we can definitely go back and I didn't realize Southridge was, you're saying Southridge is using it?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so I think there's a couple things we can do. We can ask for some input from the principals there about how it's working, and if it is something that's working really well and recommended, make sure that the other schools have that information as well, and see if it's something that they want to pursue. And then also I'm curious to find out from the students who are Southridge students, because they didn't bring that up in this conversation at all, which I just find interesting, because we spent like a lot of time, like maybe 3 or 2.5 meetings talking about this. So I'm just curious about why the app never came up, unless it's something that they're doing that's new.
It's not new, and that's what I said, is that, you know, it has to be used consistently. So depending on who your students are and whose classrooms they're in and how responsible those students may be, they maybe don't have to use the app.
Mm-hmm. The other thing that was interesting, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but it seemed like this is less of an issue at Kennewick, the students were saying. Part of it they thought was because of just the newness of the facility, but also because some of the expectation setting or follow through of, I don't know if they had maybe a better way of determining who was doing this, but you know, like I said, we shared the feedback with the principals, and I'm not saying that there's not an issue at Kennewick or anything like that. It just seemed like, based on the student feedback who were in the room, it seemed like a little different. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask Matt and Rhonda Pratt to go back to the high school principals meeting with, you know, the question about the app, and I haven't not yet been involved directly with the principals. I just asked for some information over email. But, you know, to have them have this conversation a little bit deeper. I also have let them know if they're, that we're considering investing in vape detectors, because that did come from a building, but it's also something that we've talked about from the district too, and we may have some resources to be able to do that through some not, you know, general fund money. So that would be a good use of funds to be able to provide that too. So
can we also include our middle school principals? Because our 6th and 7th and 8th graders eventually become 9th graders, and
Yes,
if
they
they're
do.
the ones we're concerned about, let's
My daughter's in
include
middle
them.
school. She says there's vaping all the time.
And there's destruction in
Mhm.
bathrooms all the way down to little kindergarten bathrooms. So,
And
I mean,
yeah, and I also want to say, just for the, you know, benefit of our kids, I truly believe, and I think that administrators would say too, it's a small minority of students causing the issues. It's not that we've got all of our kids, you know, out vandalizing bathrooms or vaping. I'm not saying it's not happening. It does happen, but I do think the vast majority of students are responsible and avoiding those kind of behaviors, and it's a smaller percentage, you know, not the majority, but of kids, but, you know, a small percentage of kids who are doing this. Just to, it's not all of our kids.
Of course not.
Yeah.
What did you ask from us? What is our action tonight? What do you want?
Well, I'm just responding to the ask to have this talked about and put on the agenda. And so I just wanted to share kind of what we've been doing. Okay. And then get any, I guess, other thoughts that you all have.
I have 2 questions.
And I heard a
Go ahead,
couple,
Mike.
so.
Let you start.
So my first question has to do with the idea of discussing cameras outside of the bathrooms. And then the second one is what is the punishment for vaping? Those two.
The cameras, so we do have, I mean, there are cameras in the hallways. So that is part of how when an issue happens and the school's trying to investigate, that's what they're relying on, that and reports and other things.
Is there a camera outside of every bathroom?
Well, I think in every hallway, I'd have to double check with the team here, that essentially every hallway would have that view, not obviously in the restroom, but of
Not in the restroom.
you know, yeah, I know, I'm just clarifying for anybody, but for outside of who is coming and going, yes. Right, Ron?
Yes.
Yeah.
So every single bathroom has a camera outside of it.
It is not directly right outside the door pointing at the door, but it is in the hallway.
Okay.
We have a visible shot of all bathrooms, entrances, and exits.
Okay. And then punishment for vaping? Maybe we stiffen that a bit.
I want to make sure I don't give you bad information, and because there's on our discipline matrix, I could probably bring it up, or I could ask Matt and he probably has it off the top of his head.
While Matt is coming up, do
Yeah.
we use our FIDs on that? Do we use that technology, or like the little pass? If you were going to give someone a pass, could it have an RFID chip on it that would trigger that person going in, coming out, and they should be on their way to the classroom?
Like what we do getting in buildings, right? Where you badge in and you get in a building.
Yeah, we do not currently have that. Thank you.
Yeah, so vaping is typically right now falls under our alcohol and other drug kind of category. So it is treated, just as having cigarettes at school or alcohol at school or those kind of things. So typically it does involve some exclusionary discipline, but we really want to try to also intervene and to provide resources so to help the students make better choices. Typically, it also is fairly progressive in terms of repeated use. But I could find out more from the specific high school principals, just how they're dealing with vaping. We can update that. That's from a general standpoint where it falls on our.
So if a kid vapes one time, gets caught vaping, then what? What happens to it? What's that get him?
So that's what I want to double check on. Typically, there is some sort of intervention made. So whether or not it's an ISS, it's always going to be a phone call, so the parents are aware of what happened. And typically, again, depending on what they're vaping, it'll determine whether or not the student is excluded for some time as a short-term suspension.
And in the past, because I haven't been in the, working there for 3 years, but in the past, our student's assistant, our staff person, makes a connection with them.
Right.
Depending on what they need to have. So generally, they do get spoken to.
Typically, we like to use some resources to, again, give the students some information, some skills, provide some intervention around, just making sure that there's not more serious substance abuse issues, those kinds of things. We would look into that as well.
I think we stiffen it. I think you stiffen the penalty. Generally I think we should stiffen the penalty for a lot of things like bullying, abuse, substance abuse. I think we should stiffen all those penalties, really. That's my 2 cents.
Gabe, you got a question?
Yeah, so just to kind of, I guess, circle back around to your ask, Dr. Pierce, what I would be asking, and I don't know if hopefully the rest of the board is okay with this. So I would want to know a couple things. One, what does our regular check-ins look like in terms of, you go into most businesses and they have regular sign-off sheets that someone's checked this building or this bathroom, yada, yada, yada. Do we do something like that? Two, one of the ideas is to remind students about expectations about bathrooms over the morning announcements. I would love that we could maybe start doing that. I think that's easy to do. And I would like to know potentially what the vape detector situation is, like what that might cost us, if that was something we'd like to pursue. And then for London, I would like to know potentially with the student advisory committee, there's a note on here about doing regular bathroom checks by admin and staff. Is there a potential for like leadership in the building to maybe help us out? Like if we get the students involved in helping with some checks, like maybe that'll bring some more ownership to the group. I don't know. I don't have an answer how, but just something to maybe go back to the group and see if they can help out as well. I don't think we can ask all of our teachers to constantly monitor the bathroom, so we would need some help. Those are my asks.
Mike?
Yes.
So I talked to 3 teachers at 2 of the high schools and at comprehensive high schools and 4 at the other. And I said, and I was asking about this and for them to give me more information. And my final question was, what can the board do for you? What is it that you would like the board to do? And all but one said, I don't see it as a board issue, but just what Dr. Pierce said is that we want this to be brought forward. We want more, what's the word? I don't want to say pressure, just more light to be shown on it, and that we just kind of had a little sideboard here, a more comprehensive attitude throughout the buildings. And of course, everybody is different in how they deal with things, but I think there was some concern about, I deal with it this way, this person doesn't deal with it. And so students get mixed messages. And it is, it always seems to come back to the teachers to always be paying attention, and they felt some pressure to always be paying attention. That's why the little app is really a good thing, because then they don't have to physically do a lot. But to ask teachers to go into the bathroom during their passing period when kids are already in your room trying to find out what the next thing that you're doing in, you know, robotics or whatever is asking a lot and almost impossible. So policy isn't really their thing. Practice, standards of practice, and consistency of practice, I think, is what all but the one said. And the other one just said, if there could be a policy that we don't allow those things to happen. And then they laughed and said, but we already don't allow it, so I don't know if it would make a difference. So.
In reading the student feedback, empty threats of punishment, that's some said, lack of, you know, what are some consequences that should have, lack of independent privileges, you know, they should become, that kind of leads me to feel like they're not, nobody's really coming down. When I talk to my daughters about this, like, oh yeah, this happens all the time, nobody does anything about it. That's what they always say to me. So.
And I want to, you know, I think that it's, that's true. That's what the students said. I also know we haven't really raised that with principals, because I think sometimes from a student perspective, A, they don't know what discipline might be administered to another student, and B, if the administration can identify who the offender is, I will guarantee you that they're doing something about it. I think part of the difficulty is we don't have enough adults to, you know, be monitoring in all of the bathrooms, and things happen, and it's difficult to find out who did it and then to discipline that person. But we're going to bring this back to principals, and, you know, they already have this student feedback, and, you know, part of it maybe is just more creating awareness of like what will happen, what can happen. If you do X, this is what the consequence is going to be. So I hear everything that you're saying. I want to make sure, I think I missed something on the board feedback, the vape detectors, the what's the current practice, is that how, did I get that right?
Yeah,
Gabe?
just
kind of
yeah.
in terms of like
checking in on the restrooms, yeah.
And like
Like
doing rounds of kind of, okay.
Well, and how do we check to see who's going? So the RFID or using the app or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I guess, do custodians make rounds throughout the day and check all the bathrooms, or do they, is that part of their, that's what I'm curious to know, if we're checking them regularly, or if this is something that Because again, with the checks too, right, you're gonna identify, oh, like we're out of feminine hygiene products, or oh, there's toilet paper missing, and we can ensure stuff's stocked potentially too.
From my experience, as frequently as possible, but, I mean, you can't say that they have the time to do that every hour, right?
No, that's why I'm asking, that's why I'm asking to find out what it looks like, because
It's different in
Yeah.
every wing, I'm sure.
I just hope we're
We'll
not checking
I'll
them
do
like once
some
a week
follow-up
or
and
something.
find out. And then
Hopefully it's
I feel like I
more
missed
than that.
something
Daily.
else that was said. I got the, kind of an interest in having consistency of practice within the building. The app, was there something missing? I feel like there was something you said,
Well,
Gabe,
yeah,
that I didn't get.
I would like, if we can we start putting out messages to the schools and the announcements, like, this is your school, like, quit doing your TikTok dance in the bathroom and clogging
Well,
toilets.
and
like,
that was one of the, things that the
Whatever.
student group identified, recommendations to principals. So all those recommendations are going to principals and, yeah. Okay, great.
I know we have a high school principals meeting tomorrow, so I'll talk to Rhonda about it first in the morning. I might be able to get some answers to you pretty quickly in regards to some of these things.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
Questions or comments?
And thank you, Dr. Pierce, for pointing out that this is a small number of students who do this, because I graduated a very, very long time ago, and it was a small number of students that were smoking in the bathroom then. And so, and putting toilet paper in things. So it's the same stuff, although TikTok has ramped it up a little bit by ripping things off the wall, but it's the same small group of people who ruin it for the good people. And so I want London to know that, is that I'm sure we all recognize that.
Be careful, Mike used to do.
Oh, I'm sure he did. but-
Problematic, I will say.
Yes. But look, 1 out of 5, right? So I want your student advisories and your other students to know that this is to certainly stop that, but it's also to recognize the fact that every student deserves a safe and clean and functioning bathroom, and we want that to happen because adults want it and students want it, and we don't have much time to use the bathroom, and you have to go fast, and it needs to be okay for you. So I want them to know that.
Yeah, we got to keep.
So we got to
moving.
go. Some people have to use the bathroom.
All right, so I think we're good. All right, so next agenda is the next meeting agenda. We have the 22-23 budget update and the boundaries, scenarios / impacts. Anything else we want to add?
And Dr. Pearson, I can give information from Day on the Hill.
Yep.
Or, wait, when do we meet next?
Yeah.
No, we won't.
So
It'll
we
have to
won't,
be the
because we
one
won't
after
have
that,
that
sorry.
It's the next one.
Yep.
Okay, with nothing else, we have an executive session that's going to last, they tell me 30 minutes, they never end on time. So I'm going to say 40 minutes. And with that, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you so much.
Thanks.
There we go.
Sorry I was so late. No.
I don't want to know this.